The atmosphere in the Late Show's New York studio was electric that night. Karoline Leavitt, the 27-year-old White House press secretary who'd become the face of Donald Trump's second administration, was about to face off with Stephen Colbert, the king of late-night political comedy and an unapologetic critic of everything Trump stood for. Staff members whispered backstage that ticket requests had broken records, with both conservatives and liberals desperate to witness what many were calling the confrontation of the year. Before diving into tonight's explosive interview between Karoline Leavitt and Stephen Colbert, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our latest political breakdowns. Leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. For weeks, tension had been building. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just any press secretary. She was a phenomenon. The youngest person ever to hold the position, she transformed the role with her Gen Z sensibilities and unwavering loyalty to Trump. Her catchphrase, "No cap," had become both a conservative rallying cry and a liberal punchline. Her TikTok broadcasts from the White House had garnered millions of followers, even as traditional media outlets criticized her for turning serious politics into social media spectacle. Leavitt had stepped into the role during Trump's re-election campaign, bringing youth and energy that resonated with younger voters. After his victory, she became the administration's shield and sword, defending controversial policies with unwavering confidence. The expulsion of AP and Reuters journalists from cabinet meetings, crippling tariffs imposed on Canada that had strained international relations, and most recently, Trump's controversial peace deal with Russia that effectively ended the Ukraine war but left many questioning America's global standing. Colbert, on the other hand, had spent years building his brand as Trump's comedic nemesis. His nightly monologues dissecting and mocking the administration had made him a hero to liberals. He'd promised his audience that when Leavitt appeared on his show, he wouldn't pull punches. "We're going to have a real conversation," he said the night before. "Not a TikTok performance." Outside the Ed Sullivan Theater, crowds had gathered since morning. Trump supporters wearing red MAGA caps stood on one side of the street, while Colbert fans occupied the other, both groups watching each other warily. Police barriers kept them separated as occasional chants broke the New York evening air. The show's opening monologue had just wrapped when the announcement came. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the White House press secretary, Karoline Leavitt." The applause was deafening, though mixed with unmistakable boos. Leavitt stepped onto the stage with practiced confidence, her blonde hair falling loosely around her shoulders. She wore a structured black blazer over a vintage band t-shirt, paired with high-waisted jeans and pristine white sneakers, a look that screamed both authority and Gen Z authenticity. Colbert rose to greet her, his trademark smile firmly in place. They shook hands briefly before taking their seats, both sitting forward, neither fully relaxed. The audience quieted, sensing the tension crackling between them. "Karoline, welcome to the Late Show," Colbert began, his tone friendly but with an edge. "Gotta say, at 27, you're making history as the youngest press secretary ever. Pretty impressive. But I have to ask, does working for Donald Trump feel like babysitting someone who refuses to grow up?" The audience erupted in laughter and applause. Leavitt didn't flinch. Instead, she smiled calmly, meeting Colbert's gaze directly. "Thanks for having me, Stephen," she replied, her voice steady and confident. "But no, I don't babysit. I work with the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He's rebuilding America while others just talk, and I'm proud to help get that message out." Scattered applause came from Trump's supporters in the audience, while others exchanged looks of disbelief. Colbert leaned back slightly, recognizing her comfort in the spotlight. "Goat, huh? Interesting choice of words. Speaking of choices, let's talk about your statement last week that Canada is on its knees after Trump imposed those tariffs. Is that what passes for diplomacy these days, or is humiliating our allies just a bonus? The studio fell quiet, awaiting her response. Leavitt tilted her head slightly, her expression unchanged. Stephen, if you want to discuss economics, let's do that, she said, her tone measured. Canada depends on American markets far more than we rely on theirs. Tariffs are leverage, and they're working. The president understands something that maybe you don't. Sometimes playing tough is how you get results. We're not here to win popularity contests. We're here to win for America. No cap. No cap, Colbert repeated with exaggerated thoughtfulness. I appreciate the Gen Z lingo, very relatable. But about winning, isn't kicking out established news organizations like AP and Reuters from cabinet meetings more about avoiding tough questions than winning? Your administration banned them last month. How does silencing the press spell victory for democracy? The audience murmured, some nodding in agreement. Leavitt sat up straighter, her eyes sharp and focused. We're not silencing anyone, Stephen. AP and Reuters lost their access because they consistently push narratives instead of reporting facts. The American people have lost faith in traditional media sources. She gestured toward Colbert, including shows like yours. We filter press access to ensure the administration's message reaches people without distortion. That's not silencing. That's a vibe check for journalists who forgot their actual job. Colbert laughed, but it wasn't warm. A vibe check for the press. That's certainly a creative way of saying controlling the narrative. You know, Karoline, press freedom isn't something the White House gets to filter like Instagram comments. The audience erupted with applause, several people standing. Leavitt smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Are you stuck in 1990 or something, Stephen? Americans trust us because they see results, jobs, economic growth, peace. Trump doesn't need legacy media to validate his accomplishments, and neither do I. With X, TikTok, and my direct connection to 728,000 followers, we can speak straight to the American people. Call it control if you want. I call it cutting out an outdated middleman who wasn't doing their job anyway. The studio temperature seemed to rise, as scattered applause mixed with vocal disagreement from the audience. Colbert tapped his desk lightly, a move his regular viewers recognized as a sign he was preparing to dig deeper. Karoline, let's get real for a moment, he said, dropping the sarcasm from his voice. You say you're replacing the press with something better, but isn't the truth that you're complicit in undermining American democracy? You're selling out your own generation, turning Gen Z into a marketing tool for a man who is systematically dismantling checks and balances just to maintain power. What do you say to that? His words landed like a grenade. The audience gasped collectively, then broke into chaotic reaction, shouts of agreement from some, outraged protests from others. For the first time, Leavitt's composure wavered just briefly. Her eyes flashed with genuine anger before she regained control, crossing her arms and leaning forward. You just called me complicit in undermining democracy, she began, her voice low but intense. You dare accuse me of selling out my generation? Let me give you some real talk, Stephen. The hypocrisy is stunning. You sit in your millionaire's chair every night pretending to champion democracy while profiting from division. Trump saved America from the mess your friends left behind, and I stand with him proudly, not to please TV hosts like you. The conservative section of the audience roared with approval as she continued, her gestures becoming more animated. You want to talk democracy? Look in the mirror. Every night you decide who gets mocked, who's painted as the villain in your narrative. I grew up in New Hampshire with parents who worked themselves to the bone running a small business. No privilege, no connections. I know what real Americans want. A strong country that protects their interests first. Trump delivers that, and I'm honored to help. You call that selling out? I call it winning. No cap. Colbert absorbed the blow, visibly taken aback by her intensity, but quickly recovered. Winning, Karoline. I'm not questioning your background or how hard your parents worked. I'm questioning what you're doing with the platform you've earned. You stand at that White House podium defending press bans, justifying international bullying, and turning governance into a TikTok highlight reel. You think Gen Z wants their future mortgaged for social media clout? You're helping build a regime, not preserving a democracy. The liberal section of the audience erupted in support, some rising to their feet. Leavitt laughed, a sharp, cold sound. A regime? Really, Stephen? That's what you're going with? She shook her head, eyes blazing. I'm not building a regime. I'm helping build a future. Gen Z doesn't want your lectures on morality. They want jobs, security, and a nation that commands respect. Trump ends wars, creates prosperity, and strengthens America's position internationally. I'm not undermining democracy. I'm helping tear down a broken system that failed ordinary Americans for decades. She paused, then continued with a softer but no less forceful tone. I'm also a mother, Stephen. I gave birth to my son days after the attempt on President Trump's life last year. I came back to work immediately because I believe in this administration. I do this for my child's future, not for your approval or anyone else's. You can mock me all you want, but I won't back down, ever. The revelation about her motherhood visibly changed the atmosphere. Even some who had been against her looked thoughtful. The conservative section of the audience cheered loudly, many standing. Colbert regrouped, changing tactics. I respect your dedication, Karoline, and congratulations on your son. But let's talk specifics. The Russia-Ukraine peace deal. You called it a triumph of Trump's negotiation skills, but critics see it as appeasement. Ukraine lost territory, Russia faces minimal consequences, and Putin is claiming victory. How is that a win for American leadership? Leavitt's expression hardened. Stephen, you're framing this all wrong. We didn't appease anyone. We ended a bloody conflict that the previous administration had no strategy for, except endless escalation. Trump brought both sides to the table and negotiated peace. Yes, compromises were made, as in any negotiation, but the killing stopped. You call that caving? I call it leadership. She gestured emphatically as she continued. The war was draining American resources and destabilizing global markets. Trump fixed a problem others couldn't. You and your media friends seem disappointed that you can't keep pushing war stories for ratings. Americans wanted peace, and President Trump delivered. It's that simple. Colbert shook his head. Peace at any price isn't victory, Karoline. It's surrender. You criticize Canada over tariffs by saying they're on their knees. But when Putin gets what he wants, suddenly compromise is brilliant strategy. Where's the consistency in that worldview? Leavitt didn't miss a beat. The difference, Stephen, is leverage. With Canada, we have economic leverage, and we're using it to benefit American workers. With Russia-Ukraine, the reality was different. President Trump recognized that endless proxy war wasn't serving American interests. He made peace possible when others could only offer more weapons and more casualties. Different situations require different approaches. That's not inconsistency, that's smart leadership. As the interview approached its conclusion, Colbert leaned forward for one final attack. Karoline, straight question, no spin. You're young, accomplished, clearly intelligent. But do you ever worry you're just Trump's puppet, a pretty Gen Z face he can hide behind when policies fail? Because from where I sit, I see someone who talks a big game about authenticity but never, ever breaks from the party line, even when it contradicts itself. The question hung in the air. The studio fell completely silent. Leavitt stared at Colbert for a long moment, then smiled. Not the practiced political smile she'd worn previously, but something colder and more determined. "Stephen, you just called me a puppet," she said, her voice low but carrying throughout the silent studio. "That's the lowest blow you could throw, and I won't let it slide. I'm not a puppet. I'm the voice of an administration that's working for Americans forgotten by elites like you. I have my own mind, my own principles, and they align with President Trump's vision for America." She leaned forward, matching his posture. "You think I lack authenticity because I support the president consistently? That's not being a puppet. That's called loyalty and conviction. I grew up watching politicians flip-flop with the polls. Americans are tired of that. They want leaders who stand by their word." Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "I chose this path. No one pulled my strings. I believe in what we're doing, the jobs we're creating, the peace we've secured, the strength we're rebuilding. You can call that whatever you want. I call it integrity." The conservative section of the audience erupted in the loudest applause of the night. Even some who had booed earlier seemed impressed by her unwavering resolve. Colbert tried once more. "Integrity means speaking truth to power, Karoline. Do you ever tell Trump when he's wrong? Or is your job just to nod and post about it on social media?" Leavitt's gaze never wavered. "My job is to communicate the president's vision effectively. Stephen, when we disagree, it happens behind closed doors, not for your entertainment. Trump values loyalty, yes, but he also values honesty. I wouldn't be in this position if all I did was nod." She stood up, signaling the end of the interview on her terms. "You wanted me to come here and crumble under pressure. That's not happening. Gen Z and President Trump are reshaping America's future together, and no amount of late-night mockery will change that. We win, you lose. Deal with it." With that, she extended her hand to Colbert, who rose and shook it, a flicker of genuine respect visible despite his clear frustration. "Karoline Leavitt, everyone," he said to the camera as the audience reaction split the studio in two, thunderous applause from one side, vocal disapproval from the other. "We'll be right back after this break." Within minutes of the interview airing, social media exploded. Karoline versus Colbert began trending worldwide, with clips of the confrontation accumulating millions of views. Conservative media declared Leavitt the clear victor, praising her composure and unwavering defense of Trump's policies. "Karoline crushes Colbert," screamed the Fox News Chiron. Liberal outlets focused on her defense of press restrictions in the Russia deal, painting her as Trump's Gen Z shield and questioning her commitment to democratic principles. But even her critics acknowledged her formidable presence and unflappable delivery. Political commentators from both sides recognized the historic nature of the interview, representing the deepening generational and ideological divide in America. One CNN analyst noted, "Whether you agree with her or not, Leavitt demonstrated why she's the most effective communicator in this administration. She speaks Trump's language but packages it for a younger audience." 30 minutes after leaving the stage, Leavitt posted on X, "Vibe check complete. Sigh." He came for the knockout, left with a lesson. Gen Z doesn't back down, and neither does Trump's America. No cap. Deal with it. The post accumulated over 200,000 likes within the hour, accompanied by a photo of her walking off stage, head high, white sneakers gleaming under the stage lights. The next morning's White House press briefing was standing room only. Journalists shouted questions about the interview as Leavitt approached the podium, her expression serene. "I said what needed saying," she told them calmly. "Now let's get back to the real work of serving the American people." The Karoline Leavitt, Stephen Colbert confrontation represents more than just compelling television. It illuminates the profound transformation of American politics in 2025, with traditional media institutions losing influence, social platforms becoming political battlegrounds, and generational divides deepening. Their face-off symbolizes the competing visions for America's future. Leavitt's unapologetic defense of Trump's controversial policies, delivered with Gen Z flair and unwavering conviction, demonstrates how modern political communication has evolved. Her references to her middle-class upbringing and new motherhood humanized her, while reinforcing her connection to everyday Americans, a powerful combination that even her harshest critics couldn't dismiss. The lesson here transcends politics. In today's polarized environment, authenticity and unwavering confidence are powerful weapons against criticism. Leavitt didn't merely defend, she counterattacked, turning Colbert's challenges into opportunities to amplify her message. She controlled the narrative by refusing to be defensive, instead pressing forward with her administration's version of the truth. Whether in professional confrontations or personal challenges, there's value in Leavitt's approach. Tell your story on your terms. Don't let others define you or your motivations. In an era where everyone's opinions are scrutinized and attacked, victory often belongs not to those who are objectively right, but to those who remain steadfast in their convictions and refuse to be rattled by pressure. If you found this breakdown enlightening, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Was Karoline Leavitt right to stand her ground, or did Stephen Colbert expose genuine flaws in the administration's approach? The debate continues, and we want to hear from you. Until next time, this is Political Pulse, bringing you the stories that define America today.